season is life. People come, people go. There are smaller seasons in life, right? It might be while you live in North Carolina that you have a community. And when you leave that community, you can't be in that community in that same way. That's unfortunate, but that's life. And I know I'm stressing this point because I've shared it with so many people, and there's always a yabbit, right? Like a rabbit, right? You get yabbits together and they just breed. Yeah, but I live in Podunk, North Carolina, or I live in this place. You know what? Skype is free. Email is free. I don't have technology. Well, the odds of that being true are not very high at this point in time. But there are just ways in which people can not just be the victim of what's happened of their surroundings, but instead be the hero in their own journey.
Right.
Super, super important to do that. Third thing that I was going to say here, and if I've said nothing that's alienated someone on the call yet, this is going to be it. So prepare to not like me.
We don't have enough controversy here, so let it rip.
We don't have enough controversy. You don't get to do everything. You can't do everything, right? The more that you can focus on a fewer amount of things that matter, that really, really matter to you, the better you're going to be. It's turned out time and time again that 3 to 5 best work projects, whether you're talking at the weekly level or they're talking about, big year-long projects, 3 to 5 of those tend to be the most that most people can do, right? If you've got 17 year-long projects on your plate, you're going to do 3 to 5 year-long projects. If you've got 3 to 5 year-long projects on your plate, you're going to do 3 to 5 year-long projects. You get what I'm saying here? Right?
My thought is that when you take the other, the other 12 or 13 projects off your plate, then you've got less anxiety. And
that's my point.
Gosh, by having all those 17 projects, that allows me to hang on to that anxiety and have excuses, doesn't it?
It does, and it fills into this narrative that like you are super accomplished and prolific and infinite and
important. I've got more projects. I must be more important.
Oh yeah, I mean, what's wrong with Charlie? Like he's only writing a book and has a podcast and does events. I'm doing all of that and more. Okay. Like, I know I have my hands full with what I've got already, right? So, and that's the thing, right, is that much like the constraint of, death, the constraint of having, if you say, okay, I'm going to pretend to listen to, Charlie and Charles. Interestingly, we both have the initial CG, which is funny. So I'm going to listen to CG squared here, right? And pretend that I have no more than 5 year-long projects. And by the way, moving is a project. Like Charles, you were there at the workshop, right? If it takes your time, energy, and attention, guess what? It's a project. Cleaning out that closet, that's a project, right? Getting married, that's a project. When you make everything, when you make it all work in the sense of it's all something that requires your time, energy, and attention, and you overlay that, and see that, wait a second, it's impossible for me to get married, move across the United States, write a book, start a business, and take on a new job. Like something is going to break in that process. And people are like, wait a second, Charlie, I can count. That's 5. Those are 5 really transformative projects, right? Those are 5 really, really transformative projects. Odds are not all of them are going to fly. So when you accept the beauty of that constraint, what that does is allow you to say, you know what? I have pre-decided that these 5 things are the things that matter most. These align with my values. These align with how I want to be in the world. These align with the types of things that are going to make a difference 5 years from now. And I'm going to spend my time, energy, and attention working on those until they're done.
Yeah.
Or until I see that I picked the wrong project, and I'm going to be okay with that, and I'm going to choose another project.
Yeah.
Right? Having that sort of support can be powerful, because here's the thing, Charles, and I try to do this from a mathematical point of view. If you do 3, we'll just go 3 really important, big, best work projects a year, and you do that 5 years in a row, let's imagine you're an author and you're writing one book a year. At the end of 5 years, you have 5 books done, which depending upon what genre you're in, like if you're in, romance, then you didn't get much done because I don't know how they turn out a book every 6 weeks, but they do, right? But if you're in, say, nonfiction and you ship a book every year and you've got 5 books under your belt, that's going to put you in a very high percentile of people that have done that.
That's an elite status.
That's an elite status.
If they're good books.
If they're good books. You know what? And even if 2 of them are bad, that's still an elite status. Because how many people do you know, Charles, who have written 5 books?
Yeah.
And we know creative people.
Right. I'm finding out there are a lot of people that have 100 books under their belt. And when you go look, they're ebooks that are 7 pages long and go, that's not really a book yet.
Yeah.
But yes.
We live in a strange world to world.
The real book that you're talking about.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying though, like.
Yes, I am. I'm with you.
And so that's what I want people to really take from that idea of constraints and displacement, and is a sense that pick 3 and go after them and finish them. And then you know what? When that year rolls over, pick 3 more and do it again. And that year rolls over, pick more. I promise you. And if you do this for the next 3 years and you're not happy about the results, please do email me, because I want to know. I want to know what happened, because in every other case where people have taken it seriously, it's been transformative for them as creative people, as thought leaders, as business people, whatever they're doing. It's made such a huge difference. So I would go with those 3 things. 1, find the way of doing goal setting that works for you. 2, find your group of yay sayers that are going to help you be in that community of yay sayers. And 3, limit your work to the essential best work projects and focus on getting those done. If you do those 3 things, you're going to find yourself in a very good position as far as how you feel about yourself, but also how the world sees you.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you've been dancing all inside my head, hopefully for my good, but wow, how can you jump all over my stuff? I was afraid of interrupting, and I'm glad I didn't, but I do want to back up to the narrative. Is there one that you're still struggling with that is holding you back at all, that you have to wrestle with in some way, even with all you know? Absolutely. Every day. Every day. I have a brand problem, Charles. I really do have a brand problem, in the sense of I'm involved in a lot of different things. I am an executive coach. For instance, in December, I'm flying to Nigeria to do an on-site with one of my executives. And I do a lot of work with both. I mean, I don't write about it as much, but I do a lot of work on the spiritual side of things, spiritual and philosophical side of things. I do a lot of work with just plain old getting stuff done. I grow businesses. And so a challenge that I have is trying to figure out the best ways to make that coherent for other people. And there's the story that I tell myself, that the story that creeps up that I work with is like, if I just picked one thing, right? If I just went down one of those routes, like everything would be easier. And I've tried that. It wasn't easier. It was just, I had different problems. So that's one of those things that come up for me a lot. I'm doing, what I'll say is circa 2015, I feel like I'm doing a lot better on eating my own cooking. Right.
And so as someone that teaches a lot about the ways that I teach, like you really have to say, like, in what ways am I eating my own cooking or practicing what I preach, whatever your localism is for that, right? And this year has been a far better year for me on that front, so I feel good about that. But that's one of those things that creeps up for me, is like, in what ways am I not showing up and being in the arena? And how might I check myself against that? Is this the Jacob's Ladder thing, in the sense where like we all have this tendency where like we'll get to one level of accomplishment and then we'll say, but it could have been better, right? I could have done these 18 million different things and then I would have had this super outcome. So therefore I'm going to not really be celebratory and grateful about what I was able to do and what I did do, right? So I have to watch out for myself with that one as well. A story that, and this is one of those life stories for me that I really have to check is I grew up in the South, multiracial and very poor. And there are still times where I'll see people who, from a resource point of view, did not have to spend 25, 30 years of their life crawling out of some of those positions, of being poor. And I haven't crawled out of being multiracial, but, there are different challenges that come up. There. So, one of those stories is like, what would have happened if I didn't have to spend this long? Like if I would have come out of the gate and I would have been able to go to music lessons when I was 6, right? Because we could afford that. Or,
right.
I was able to go to space camp, or I was able to go to some of these schools, right? What would have happened? I would be there. Like you'd see me on ink. And I have, we can create these stories about ourselves. My counter to that, when I recognize 30 minutes later that I've been pissy about something, is like, you know what? But all of those experiences make me who I am.
Absolutely.
They make me be ingenuitive. They connect me to other people and their journeys, because I've had a journey that hasn't been easy. It makes me more cognizant of the ways people are excluded and included. And it also reminds me that, like, one step at a time, we can change our outcomes. And so, there's a line from the Tao Te Ching that goes, because the sage recognizes her faults, she is faultless.
Right.
And I think as we go through, it's like we have these stories, we have these narratives, and they can be powerful. Like a narrative does not have to be true for it to work on you.
And that's the truth.
That works both ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And it works both ways, that you can write a better story that might not necessarily be true, but it still works on you.
Absolutely.
You can write the story that you are a capable, creative, competent person of character and live as if that were true, and it becomes true. You can write and believe the story that you're not, like, life is hard, like, things are so much easier for other people, and that story becomes true. They both might be equally true of the world, but how they impact you, how they change your decision making, how they alter the way in which you get up and you say, I've got this day and I'm going to make it count, like that or not, right? That is what makes all the difference.
Yeah, back to narrative. Again, that's probably one of the strongest lessons for me as we've been doing corporate communications work through the years. I just did not realize the power of narrative, of personal narrative, and how that impacts business owners to become their business narrative. And then that narrative becomes part of the narrative of the people that work for that business owner. And I mean, just the power of that narrative to spread and impact other people for the good, or sometimes not for the good. Having been a person that grew up hearing a lot of very negative narratives, I took them as my own for a long time, and I still realize that I struggle with a lot of those internal stories. I don't know that they were ever true, but they don't have to be true at all now. As I talk with people, I realize that some folks go into their 60s, 70s, and 80s and never give up those childhood narratives that they learned, whether they were true or not, and they still live with them. So,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah,
you preach it well.
Thanks.
So, what do you want to be remembered for? I often think about, and again, we talked about death at the top of our conversation, but when people are milling around at your wake or at your funeral, what would you want them to be saying? What do you want them to be in their heads and their hearts about the impact that you had?
I would want them to say that because of his work, I did something that I didn't think I could do. That because of his work, I did my own best work. I really want to reclaim work, the sacredness of it, the beauty of it, the humanity of it, so that it's not one of those 4-letter words. It's like, oh, I got